To respond to the OF diversity hire about women evolving from their grandmothers, women becoming mattress actresses on the internet shows that women are devolving and not evolving.
I don't think men would be having this issue with struggling. We wouldn't be outpacing them and kicking their ass in education, even in the labor market. Like, men's wages have been stagnant, which I don't think is a good thing, while ours has been rising. Like, women are doing better in this society than in previous society. So while it's your opinion that this is an example of devolving, for instance, I'm really happy I had this option, and now I make 7 figures and I'm able to have all the time, money, and freedom that I enjoy. So for me, it was a good thing.
But I mean, it's also true that women, and not speaking of your own situation, but women in average, like especially for white women, the rates of depression they're really skyrocketing, right? More women than ever have clinical diagnoses, whether that's depression, anxiety, and they're medicated. So I think we can say that, yeah, obviously women have made a lot of grounds in terms of economics and finances, but I feel like it has come at a cost to for a lot of women, our mental health and our overall work-life balance, which women purport to be way less happy about than men on average.
So I think that, like, for instance, the medication thing, I think a lot of people are over-medicated these days, and men are more on that stuff too. So there's a correlation versus causation thing. So while it's true, and I think there are great, I've read a lot of books on this, Lost Connections, Johan Hari is a great book on this. I think social media can have an impact, but to say it's because they're less involved in their roles as mothers, and especially mothers, because while studies do show marriage tends to make people happier, kids don't, and the happiness gap is the largest in the United States, actually. So I don't think that to jump to, oh, women are unhappier, so the reason must be, especially when there's no evidence to bear that out, is because they're not wives and mothers, is erroneous.
Well, I mean, they have done studies that show that, I mean, married people tend to be happier than non-married people.
Kids have the opposite. So it's like, okay, do you think that they should we just be supporting dink lifestyles, to dual income, no kids? Because that seems to be what shows to be the happiest. Now, that's not for everybody, right? There's also a study out of University of Michigan that came out recently showing that people who chose not to have kids don't end up regretting it later. So it's not for everybody.
Right, but there are also studies that, like, we obviously support to talk about happiness because we don't want to be unhappy, but they've also measured things like loneliness, and people who aren't married, who don't have kids, they are more likely to be something like lonely.
So I think having meaningful connections is one of the biggest contributors to happiness.
But outside. I guess, like, not just women, not just men, in general, as we have progress, like, we are falling short in those areas.
So that's a big thing. I just talked about Lost Connections. Johan Hari, he talks about this, that social media, people aren't getting outside more. People don't have communities anymore. I mean, there was, like, back in the day, if you asked how many close friends do you have, people had, like, oh, I have 3, I have 5. Now the average is 0, especially for men. Men seem to be really struggling finding friendships or having those good friendships. So I agree with you there, but I don't think the answer is, okay, we go back. I don't even think that's practical, and I don't think that is the reason, oh, women are now in the workforce, that's why we're lonelier. We've had social media, which has deeply contributed to it. There are other factors that could be causing it, and so it's a correlation causation problem.